Everyone's watching the headlines, the breakthroughs, the big moments. But the real story is underneath. In the system no one sees. In the work that doesn't get attention. Where AI becomes useful enough to disappear.
Good afternoon, everybody. So great to be here. My name is Amit Vadi. I'm the head of community at Google DeepMind Developer Experience. And I spend a lot of my time working with developers, builders across the world, trying to build these next generation experiences. But today, getting out of the lab, we're getting really excited to be here with two amazing builders that are really pushing the boundaries of what you can do with our models, products, and tools, and actually building some really amazing applications that are building real utilities. So Max from Gumloop and Elaina from Simile, great to have you both here. And yeah, I'd love to jump into it. Maybe you can do a little quick introduction of what your companies are working on and how you're actually utilizing AI in your company today.
Cool. Do you want to go first?
Okay. Elaina, you want to go first? Max,
I'm
yes.
Max started Gumloop about 3 years ago, and we've been helping companies automate work since the beginning. It used to be like a drag and drop workflow builder. Now it's like a really horizontal agent builder that companies like Shopify and like DoorDash and Gusto use for internal agents. And the general value prop is instead of hiring a consultant or some AI innovation lab to come and teach people how to use AI at your company, you can just give people the tools and they can build their own agents that they can share with coworkers.
Can people hear me? I felt like maybe I got dislodged. Okay, beautiful. Excited to be here. I'm one of the co-founders of Simile. We're a frontier lab that builds foundation models of human behavior. So essentially, we predict how people are going to behave or respond in various scenarios: new products, new markets, new policies. We take those foundation models and we put them in a platform that gets used by Fortune 500s to essentially make better decisions about end consumers or end constituents. And we can talk more about what that means.
That's great. Love to hear it. And yeah, just so you all know as well, that between the two of them, they've raised about $150 million in the past year. So super exciting times in both companies. And Max, maybe you want to get a little bit more into how your customers are actually utilizing Gumloop today?
Yeah. Generally, we start with a certain team at a company that has an idea for some really annoying task they want to automate. We help them build agents, or they use the platform and build an agent, share it with their coworkers, and then this kind of AI FOMO spreads across the company, and everyone wants to be a builder, so they'll start automating, and then ideally it spreads across the entire company. So for Gusto, for example, they started with a sales team. They started generating tons of net new revenue with agents that were doing the right follow-ups and discovery on calls. And then that spread to the marketing team and the ops team, and now I think almost every team at the company uses us, but that's ideally the journey a company goes through with agents.
That's great to hear. And Elaina, anything from your side you'd like to share?
Yeah, we're actually interesting counterparts here. My co-founders are the folks who wrote the original Generative Agents paper in 2023. And that paper basically gave rise to, we think about two main kinds of agents. And so one are exactly the kind that Gumloop builds that do automations. And then the other is this kind that takes on these really predictive personas of people. And then automation agents or other agents can also interact with those simulations of people. So we think about the applications right now basically in two key ways. One is when we immediately deploy in an enterprise, we can replace existing work that's done usually in research. So that can be in research, insights, marketing, product, or strategy. The kinds of things that today you would outsource to an agency if you would seek to answer a question like, how should I change my store layout? Or what do people think of my loyalty program? Today, with Simile, you can basically iterate through any changes that you might make to your core product or offering, and then see how these simulated audiences will respond. So we usually start by cutting from spend that people spend on traditional research, and then, as is the case with AI adoption, we're then able to extend into more of these greenfield net new use cases. So a deployment might start in research, and that might be market research. Then the marketing teams might use this directly to test creative ads or assets. The product teams then have the similes traverse their web applications, and then even the CFO's team will often actually simulate what the questions might be asked on their earnings call. Any place in your business that you're simulating or trying to understand behavior of people, we essentially end up getting embedded, but we often start in research.
That's great to hear, and I think some great insights there. I'd love to pull on this thread a little bit more. Maybe, Max, if you can talk us through maybe some of how those first conversations actually go. What are some of the points you're trying to address when you're talking to your customers?
It normally, it starts one of two ways, like either bottoms up, like someone will find the product. It is self-serve, there's a free tier, and you can like try Gumloop agents relatively easily. So sometimes we'll hop on a call and someone will be showing me an agent they built over the weekend, and I'm like mind blown by what it can do. And then all I have to do is like facilitate how they show that off to their manager and their coworkers, and then they'll start kind of getting excited about agents. And the other side of things is starting from like top down and talking to IT and security, because that's normally the people who can say no to agents. I don't know if any of you have tried to use like a bunch of AI tools internally at your company and just seen how quickly it can get hand waved away by security or IT. Like they will be the ones to say no. So oftentimes our conversation is with them first, talking about where the data is going and how it's being used, and then we can go to the actual use cases. But I'm always asking people about like what's the most painful part of their job, what is the thing that frustrates them the most. Sometimes like I'll say like if you could wave a magic wand and automate anything at your job without understanding what's possible or what's not possible, like what would that be? And there's like nuggets of truth in there that we can just go deeper on and find an agent that blows them away.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Just to pull on that a little bit more, is there any like common threads you see or themes or you see around painful points that people are having right now when adopting agents in their workplace?
I mean, the access to data is the biggest thing. Like I think a few other speakers have mentioned this before, but like if your agents don't have access to your internal data or to your Salesforce or Gong calls or Granola, like whatever you wanted to use in your agent, they're useless effectively. So that's the biggest hurdle. And the whole self-serve idea of using Gumloop for free and the bottoms-up approach doesn't really work if you can't connect to your really sensitive data sources. So that's the first blocker. And then there's always a bit of a problem with imagination. People don't even know what's possible or what they can do. So we have to kind of be their like sparring partner where we're talking to them about what's possible and what we've seen. And then like it starts to work. Yeah.
Love it, Max. That's really cool. And Elaina, from your world, I know you've done some amazing deals with CVS. Can you talk us maybe through a little bit more of the details there of how this customer journey is evolving on the simile side?
Yeah, I'll speak to the broader customer journeys. It's interesting because the first 6 to 8 months that we were going to market, we were still in stealth and had no website. And so we were talking to some of the world's largest companies, and then their IT teams couldn't find us online. But that really showed us that there was so much demand coming out of the papers that this was a market worth going after. And that pain was really pervasive because the cost of a bad decision can be really expensive. Launch in the wrong market, choose the wrong core demographic. And inversely, the benefit of a great decision is the kind of thing that can be really trajectory changing, depending on what that decision is. And so in terms of our buying cycles, we were just talking about this in the hall, if a company hasn't successfully deployed a few AI tools, it's unlikely that they're ready to adopt simulations in their enterprise decision making. If people there aren't yet fluent on use of Claude Code, for example, if there's still really hesitancy around how non-deterministic systems can behave in decision making, then those are companies where I typically actually say, like, let's talk about this again in a couple of months. However, enterprises have really been surprising me insofar as the fact that those who are a bit further on their adoption curve have already adopted something like a Gumloop are actually coming and saying, okay, I now have an end-to-end automation flow for my product research. And I want to automate my research. And in that flow, instead of going out to the market every time I have an incremental iteration or decision, then I would rather simulate how an end audience will behave against that. What we've seen with the emergence of a lot of AI tools is there's a proliferation of generation. So I had a CPG company call me and say, we used to be able to field 12 concepts a month. Now we're generating, using AI tools, 400 concepts a month, but then we're still hiring a company like Nielsen to go out into the market and test those with people. People are still the bottleneck. And then the other piece of it is you actually always want to keep talking to people, period. That's like a firm belief that we have. All of our simulations and models are grounded in people. But just given cost and scale, you can't involve people in every single decision that you make. because you just wouldn't have access to this whole room, for example. So it's about how do we put people into more decisions. So early days, companies found us, typically through the Teams paper. It always surprised me. Today, it's a combination of top-down and bottom-up. But it's been interesting watching enterprises over the last few years, because whereas in 2022, most enterprises, it was their first purchase of an AI tool, and they didn't have AI governance around this. There was really no status quo. Today, most companies that I speak to, the CVSs of the world, the largest pharma companies in the world, there is very clear governance around how AI tools get purchased and brought in.
Love that. Thank you, Elaina. So many great insights there. And the fact you didn't have a website for so long itself just sounds
it's not a
like
proud
an
mark.
interesting time. And it's great to see the journey of how far you've come. So congratulations to you and the team. And Max, I'd love to dive a little bit more, I guess, into your journey as well. As you mentioned, you started the company in Vancouver. You've now moved to the Bay Area. And kind of how has that journey been? And like as the theme is agents among us, it feels like the Bay Area there's agents everywhere right now. We're really top of mind for a lot of folks. But how are you seeing that kind of development kind of percolating across the world, in Canada and other markets?
I think it is a bit of an advantage to have started and had the perspective of like Vancouver, for example, that wasn't as like AI pilled as San Francisco was. I think there's a bit of an echo chamber happening in San Francisco where everyone's thinking about it all the time. You step out of your front door, there's like 10 billboards and 2 buses passing by telling you that you're behind and agents are taking over the world. But then you go to another city and you realize like no one's used any of the tools that you're talking about all day. So building with that perspective has been really great, like knowing that we're actually helping the rest of the world catch up and making Gumloop accessible to people who have never used Claude Code or don't know what AI can do. Like that's the real market we're after. Like bringing them up to San Francisco's speed, but maybe not as like nauseatingly AI forward as San Francisco is. But yeah, started the company in Vancouver, and we have an office in Vancouver, and going back is always a great experience to just like step out of the bubble for a second and just focus on first principles building.
Love that. And Elaina, from your side, like moving from stealth to this like really hyper-growth moment, how are you thinking about kind of the global landscape?
Absolutely. We came out of stealth in February, and that's when we really started to more aggressively take to the market. For our use case, international markets are interesting because frontier models, in addition to underperforming at predicting behavior, you can think about it that there's 2 real frontiers to what we see. AGI, general intelligence, super intelligent at math in ways that are way smarter at math than I would ever be. Then there's simulations of people and behavior that's be bad at math in uniquely the same way as Laney. Different training, different prediction set, different behaviors. So frontier models themselves don't do well at this behavioral prediction. But then an extra layer here is what's not trained into the models by way of cultural nuance and language. So at the core of what we do, we actually conduct one-on-one AI-driven interviews with people in addition to other forms of data collection, behavioral data collection. And we use those to create these models. So for example, if we're working with a multinational CPG company with presence in Thailand, that means that we've actually spoken to tens of thousands of people in Thailand to do that data collection. We actually see the gap between frontier model performance at those types of tasks and what Simile can do to be incredibly wide. And so international markets are interesting because frontier model performance is behind and will continue to be. And then also, the cost of entering a new market is incredibly high. So if you can simulate how people in that new market will respond, then that has a lot of value by way of the time to market and what you actually prioritize. Selfishly, one of my favorite customers is a Canadian retailer that we work with. Their case study will be coming out soon, so then I can talk more about them. And I have also selfishly been looking at if the difference between Canadian and US consumers, while both English-speaking can be wide, I think we see depends on the sample and who you're representing. But international markets have become a large part of our deployments. We do work in LATAM, EMEA, the UK, and EU. So it's definitely something that we've been increasingly focused on.
I 100% agree. I think Canadians are by far the best customers and builders, so it definitely resonates with me. And yeah, some great insights there. And Max, I'd love to turn it back to you, I guess, how you're thinking I know you're at the forefront of all this right now. You've seen some amazing growth in the start of the year. Like, how are your priorities for H2? Anything you can kind of share with us on some of the roadmap things that your team are working on?
I think like everything we build is in pursuit of making it easier to build agents and to use agents. There's still so much friction between someone like having an idea and getting it out into their coworkers' hands or into their manager's hands and sharing that. I've always been describing like the AI adoption at a company as starting a bonfire. There's a lot of fires. Like there was like some case study about AI pilots going awry and then people being frustrated. I think that's like their fire went out. They weren't able to make it catch. But Gumloop as a product is just trying to make it easier to start that fire. Ideally, like we have a bunch of analogies internally around this. I think I talked too much about it, but being the flamethrower that any company can point at their teams and let people build agents, let them share agents, let them be creative. There's like 1,000 features we have to build in the next year to make that a reality, but everything is in pursuit of like, my mom should be able to build an agent. She calls it Chat GDP. She doesn't even know like the actual acronym, but if she can build an agent, I think like we've succeeded in the next year.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. And as the theme is Agents Among Us, I think we're all heading towards that world. So super exciting that you're really focused on the enablement piece and trying to make that as easy as possible for customers. So super excited to see what you folks keep doing. And Elaina, I guess from your side as simulation, I think it feels like it's a very new world. Like, how does those conversations go today? Do you feel like more people are kind of entrenched in the space, have a very good understanding, and kind of how do you see that evolving over, I guess, the next 6 months or so?
I think the thing that surprised me the most when I started working on this company was that the market was much hungrier and more ready for technology like this than I thought it would be. And so whereas I thought we would spend many more months specifically doing market research, the appetite that we get from the president of a business to simulate many different parallel scenarios that inform strategy has been pleasantly surprising, I think, by way of the ambition that we observe at the companies that we work with. When we think about our roadmap, our research roadmap has two vectors. One is prediction, and the other is simulation. So prediction is how do we get incredibly good and increasingly so at the task of predicting how people will behave. We spend a lot of time talking about this say-do gap. People, whether or not it's deliberate, often self-report things that are not reflective of how they actually behave or what they actually think. We see this as even wider in things like healthcare, as related to topics like GLP-1s. So on prediction tasks, how can we continue to predict how people will actually behave, not just what they say, with increasing amounts of accuracy? And the second is these simulation tasks. So as we look a few months into the future, it isn't just, I am a car manufacturer and I'm going to launch a new vehicle, and how might a group of people respond? It's rather, I'm going to launch a vehicle. What does the cannibalization look like? What do my competitors do? What are the other supply chain implications? And how do we have a much more dynamic market simulation that helps inform some of these very big, very important decisions? Policy, where people can really be impacted, that's not somewhere that we go to market right now, but again, is one of the places that you could see that simulating how a COVID policy might have gone, for example, could yield a better end outcome for people if you can account for them in all of those end decisions. And so those are two frontiers on our research side that the modeling and research team go after. And then on the product side of our house, I get to work with some very talented folks who come from the likes of the Figmas and Notions of the world. I think our designer is actually in the room and is from Toronto and works here. But we're doing lots there by way of what are the interaction patterns with these simulations and predictions. So everything from how can you put the simulations into virtual spaces and see their interactions, UI, UX iteration, these more dynamic market simulations, what the form factor and interface for that is, also has a very ambitious roadmap. So many vectors that our team is firing on, and it's a joy to work with the customers on it because they keep surprising us with what they ask for.
Love that, Elaina, and I think you pulled on so many interesting areas there that, first of all, UI, UX, I'm super bullish on these like new form factors that are going to be emerging over the coming years, but it's great to see that there's such a big appetite for these novel solutions as well, so really excited to see you folks keep pushing the rock up the hill. And I know we only have a few more minutes here, but I'm curious, if we do have the crystal ball behind us here, if you're looking out maybe 12 months, any predictions for folks in the room, how you start to see things evolving in the agentic era?
I don't know if I can predict 8 or 12 months in the future, maybe like 60 days or 90 days. But I think the biggest trend I'm seeing internally at Gumloop is, like, we use agents for everything, so I like to think we're like 6 months ahead of where the average company might be with their adoption. And we've seen people go from messaging agents to do work for them to agents messaging you. And that switch has been really interesting. Like, I wake up in the morning to like 10 DMs from agents that have already done work in the background or that are notifying me about things that are going on in the business I wasn't aware of, like proactive customer success metrics, or like this customer, their usage 10x yesterday, and it already investigated it for me and wrote a follow-up email to like talk to their procurement lead about updating their credit contract. Like, all of those little details are handled by agents. And I think that trend will continue. Like, agents will continue messaging you, and eventually they will stop messaging you, and they will just be handling work in the background for you, like your best teammate does. Like, you're not getting pinged by your favorite coworker all the time. They only message you if they really need your help or if they want to show you what they did. That will continue, I think, for the next 12 months until we're like working alongside agents like you work alongside coworkers.
Love it. Elaina, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, we often do say with simile to think about it more like flight simulator than crystal ball. So rather than giving one predetermined outcome, how is it that we can explore many potential outcomes and counterfactuals? So we spend a lot of time thinking about the future on various time horizons. I think, to echo Max on some of this, when I go between SF and New York, I interestingly feel like I go from like a few months in the future, and then I touch the proverbial lawn, which is concrete. And I think what we're expecting more of is more proactive systems. So not leader comes with a business question, they want to know how this change might impact their loyalty program, but there's always triggers and more proactive simulations that can be running, more parallel simulations. And then similarly, something I'm hearing a lot more of and expect more of is, what do these more end-to-end autonomous systems look like? So where can agents interact with the right data sources, end-to-end complete these workflows, and then trigger something else at the end? So more proactive, more autonomous. I think that the thing I spend a lot of my time on is, for all of this to really work in action, it still requires so much change management and business cases and all of the stuff of days past. It'll be interesting to see how some of these AI native services companies, as they emerge and compete, what that will look like. But the Fortune 500s, even with also the best autonomous and proactive agents, it still takes internal real champions and change makers to make those matter. And so, in addition to some of those forecasts, I think an ambition that I have is that more of those change makers will push the boulders uphill over the next month so that people can actually realize a lot of the gains that are available in the tech today.
Great insights, and I think we'll have to meet in another year's time to see how this all plays out. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you both, as we are all coming from, we all grew up in Canada, we all moved abroad now. I'm based in London, Max is in San Francisco, and Elaina spends her time between New York and San Francisco. I'm curious how you're thinking about, as you're coming back to Canada, how you can empower this ecosystem here, but also any advice you have to founders that are maybe thinking about moving abroad to build their own startup.
I love Canada. I love coming back. I definitely will be back like full time at some point. But I would always recommend to any founder, whether it's Canada or not, like there will be 100 people telling you not to build the idea you have. Like the number of people who told me, like, why won't Zapier do this? Like, what do you think? OpenAI will just crush you. Like every turn I took, there was someone doubting us, basically. And the question goes from like, why are you doing it, over and over from all of your friends and people doubting you, and then it'll transition to how did you do it once you achieve some sort of success. But I think Canada is a really supportive place to build like the actual safety nets and just ecosystem here, and community is great to just go for it and build something if you can. Be ambitious. There's no reason to like limit yourself proactively. So yeah, I would recommend just like open your laptop, start working on something you care about, that you're excited about, that you want to talk to your friends about all the time, and then everything else will follow.
That's great. Elaina, any advice for the founders out here?
Yeah, I think I'd echo that the main learning and thing I come back to on being a founder is just not giving up. And I think the difference between companies that succeed and don't are whether or not you ran out of stamina. I, too, am a proud Canadian. People hear me say sorry on calls a little often, and it's a clear tell. But I also surround myself with many talented Canadians at work. And I think I do, when I meet a Canadian, I often am like, that makes sense. Like, there's a beautiful like sparkle and ambition that I think fills this room, and we see quite a lot of. But I think, the main advice I would have is find the boulder that's worth pushing and push it uphill. And so long as you keep pushing, I think wherever you're operating from, as long as you find customers and listen to them, there's a great path there.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. I think you've seen some great and heard some great insights here. And there's truly never been a better time to be a builder. And I think Elaina and Max both sum up this amazing builder energy that they brought from Canada to across the world. And super excited to see what you folks continue to do. And to all of you out there, we're all really excited to see these Canadian startups and founders continue to emerge. So at the DeepMind side, we're going to keep pushing the rock up the hill, keep creating the best models in the world, and I can't wait to see what you folks build. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to the next session.
Thanks, everyone.